Imagine waking up tomorrow and California is no longer part of the United States, the fifth largest economy in the world, 40 million people, Silicon Valley, Hollywood, and some of the most productive farmland on Earth, gone, just like that. An independent nation called the Republic of California. Sound impossible? It's not. California has discussed independence multiple times throughout history, and today we're exploring what would actually happen if California left the United States. How would it happen? Could California survive alone? And what would this mean for America and the world? This is the story of the greatest political divorce in modern history. Welcome to the Republic of California. In our reality, California is the most populous state in America. Nearly 40 million people live there. It's the center of the tech industry, the entertainment capital of the world, and an agricultural powerhouse. If California were an independent country, its economy would rank fifth in the world, ahead of India and the United Kingdom. But California has always been different from the rest of America, politically, culturally, and economically. It's more liberal than most states. It has its own identity. And throughout history, Californians have fantasized about going it alone. The movement is called Cal-Exit, California plus exit, like Brexit, but American. In 2016, after Donald Trump won the presidency, a petition for California independence gained hundreds of thousands of signatures. People were angry. They felt California's values didn't align with the federal government, and they asked a simple question. Why should California stay in a union that doesn't represent us? Today, we're asking what would actually happen if California did it, if a majority voted for independence, if the state legislature declared sovereignty, if California became the Republic of California. This isn't just a political fantasy. This is a complete reimagining of North America, and the consequences would shake the entire world. Picture the new map of North America. The United States now has a massive gap on its west coast. California is gone. Oregon and Washington are separated from the rest of the country by an independent nation. Nevada and Arizona suddenly have an international border. The Republic of California stretches from the Mexican border to Oregon. 800 miles of coastline, mountains, deserts, forests, and farmland. Major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, San Diego, and Sacramento are now capitals of a new country. The flag is different. The government is different. Everything has changed. At the border, checkpoints appear. Americans need passports to enter California. Californians need visas to visit the United States. Trade slows down. Families are divided. And suddenly, the idea of a united America feels like ancient history. This isn't science fiction. This is a geopolitical earthquake. And it all starts with one question. How does California actually leave? Why it could happen. The path to independence. So, how does a state secede from the United States? Legally, it's almost impossible. The Constitution doesn't allow it. After the Civil War, the Supreme Court ruled that states cannot unilaterally leave the Union. But laws don't always stop political movements. And if Californians are determined enough, independence could happen. Here's the most realistic scenario. A major political crisis hits America. Perhaps a constitutional crisis. Perhaps an economic collapse. Perhaps a deeply unpopular federal government that ignores California's interests. Trust in Washington breaks down completely. The California state government, controlled by independence-minded politicians, calls for a referendum, a statewide vote on independence. The question is simple. Should California become an independent nation, yes or no? The campaign is intense. Supporters argue that California sends more money to Washington than it receives, that federal policies hurt California's environment, economy, and values, that California could thrive on its own, free from a dysfunctional federal government. Opponents warn of economic disaster, loss of federal funding, military protection, trade barriers. They argue that California is stronger within the United States than outside it. The vote happens, and in this alternate timeline, independence wins. 55% yes, 45% no. California has spoken. It wants out. The state legislature immediately declares independence. They draft a new constitution. They establish the Republic of California, and they demand the United States recognize their sovereignty. Washington refuses. The president calls it illegal. Congress threatens sanctions. The Supreme Court says the vote is unconstitutional, but California doesn't back down. And suddenly, America faces its greatest internal crisis since the Civil War. Consequences, politics, and international recognition. The first question is, does the world recognize California as an independent nation? Recognition is crucial. Without it, California is just a rebellious state. With it, California becomes a real country. Some nations immediately recognize California. Countries that have tense relationships with the United States see an opportunity. Russia, China, and Iran quickly open embassies in Sacramento. They want to weaken America by supporting California's independence. European nations are divided. Some, like Spain, refuse to recognize California because they fear it will inspire their own separatist movements. Catalonia, Scotland, and other regions watch closely. If California can leave the United States, why can't they leave Spain or the UK? Other countries, like Canada, Mexico, and Japan, hesitate. They have strong ties with the United States and don't want to anger Washington. But they also see economic opportunities in California. Eventually, after months of negotiation, many nations quietly recognize the Republic of California. The United Nations faces a dilemma. Does California get a seat? The United States uses its veto power to block California's membership, but California is too big and too important to ignore. It becomes a geopolitical anomaly, recognized by some, rejected by others, a nation in limbo. Meanwhile, California establishes its own government. The first president of the Republic of California is elected. A new parliament is formed. Ministries for defense, foreign affairs, and trade are created. California issues its own passports, designs its own currency, and begins functioning as an independent state. Consequences, economy and currency. Now let's talk about the economy. California's economy is massive, over $3 trillion in GDP, larger than most countries. But being big doesn't mean being independent is easy. First, the currency question. California can no longer use the U.S. dollar. It needs its own money. The government introduces the Cal dollar, or Cal dollar for short. The exchange rate is initially set at 1-to-1 with the U.S. dollar, but markets are skeptical. Investors worry about California's long-term stability. Will it be able to manage its own monetary policy? Will inflation spiral out of control? The Cal dollar immediately loses value. Within months, one Cal dollar is worth only 80 U.S. cents. Californian savings shrink. Prices rise. Economic pain spreads. Trade becomes complicated. California imports food, energy, and manufactured goods from the rest of the United States. But now there are tariffs, customs inspections, and border delays. Trucks carrying goods from Arizona and Nevada wait hours at the new border. Supply chains break. Businesses struggle. The United States, angry at California's secession, imposes economic sanctions. Federal contracts with California companies are canceled. Military bases close. Thousands of federal employees lose their jobs. The Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, two of the busiest in America, face restrictions. Trade with the rest of the U.S. drops by 30%. But California has advantages. Silicon Valley is still there. Apple, Google, Facebook, and countless tech companies generate enormous wealth. Hollywood continues making movies. Agriculture still produces billions of dollars in crops, and California's ports can trade directly with Asia without going through U.S. regulations. Over time, California adapts. It signs trade agreements with China, Japan, and the European Union. It becomes a hub for Pacific Rim commerce. But the transition is painful. Unemployment rises. GDP contracts by 10% in the first 2 years. Many Californians begin to wonder, did we make the right choice? Consequences: borders and immigration. The new border between California and the United States becomes one of the most important in the world. It stretches over 2,000 miles from Oregon to Arizona, and managing it is a nightmare. Millions of people cross this border every day. Workers commuting to jobs, families visiting relatives, businesses transporting goods. Before independence, this was seamless. Now it requires passports, visas, and border checks. The United States builds checkpoints at every major crossing. California does the same. Lines stretch for miles. People wait hours to cross. The economic cost is enormous. Studies estimate the border friction costs both nations over $50 billion per year. Immigration becomes a political flashpoint. Thousands of Americans unhappy with California's independence move to Nevada, Arizona, and Oregon. Meanwhile, thousands of Californians who opposed independence move to the United States. It's a mass population exchange. But what about the millions of people who hold dual loyalties? American citizens living in California, California citizens with family in the U.S. The Republic of California offers citizenship to anyone born in California or who has lived there for 5 years. But the United States doesn't recognize dual citizenship with California. People are forced to choose. Families are torn apart. A daughter living in Los Angeles can't easily visit her parents in Nevada. A businessman with offices in both countries faces visa restrictions. The human cost of independence is staggering. And then there's the issue of illegal immigration. California's border with Mexico is now an international border controlled by California, not the United States. California adopts more lenient immigration policies than the U.S. This creates tension. The United States accuses California of being a gateway for illegal immigration. California accuses the U.S. of racism and cruelty. Consequences: military and defense. Here's a critical question. How does California defend itself? Before independence, California was protected by the U.S. military. Now, it needs its own armed forces. California inherits some military assets. Bases like Camp Pendleton, Naval Base San Diego, and various Air Force installations are on California soil. But the equipment, personnel, and weapons belong to the United States. Washington demands they be returned. A tense standoff occurs. California refuses to hand over the bases. The U.S. threatens military action. Eventually, a deal is reached. California keeps the bases, but must pay for the equipment. It's billions of dollars California doesn't have. Building a military from the scratch is incredibly expensive. California needs an Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. It starts a draft. Young Californians are required to serve, but many refuse. Protests erupt. The new republic struggles to build a credible defense force. And then there's the nuclear question. The United States has nuclear weapons stored in California. Washington immediately removes them. California is left without a nuclear deterrent. It's vulnerable. China and Russia see an opportunity. They offer California military aid, defense partnerships, even military bases on California soil. The United States is horrified. The idea of Chinese or Russian troops in California is unacceptable. Tensions escalate. The possibility of conflict becomes real. California tries to stay neutral. It declares itself a non-aligned nation. No military alliances, no foreign bases, just peaceful independence. But in a world of great power competition, neutrality is hard to maintain. Consequences, daily life and culture. Let's bring this down to the human level. What does daily life look like in the Republic of California? If you're living in Los Angeles or San Francisco, some things feel the same. You still go to work, you still watch movies, you still browse social media. But other things are very different. Your money looks different. You're paid in cow dollars, not US dollars. Your savings account has been converted. Your paycheck is worth less than it used to be. Prices are higher. Inflation is a constant worry. Your passport is different. You're no longer an American citizen. You're a citizen of the Republic of California. Traveling abroad is more complicated. Some countries require visas. Others don't recognize your passport at all. Your job might be different. If you worked for a federal agency, you're unemployed. If your company did business with the U.S. government, it's struggling. But if you work in tech, entertainment, or agriculture, you might be fine. California's core industries adapt. Sports become complicated. Are California teams still in American leagues? The Lakers, the 49ers, the Dodgers. Do they stay in the NBA, NFL, and MLB? Or does California create its own leagues? It's a cultural identity crisis. Education changes. Schools no longer follow federal guidelines. California designs its own curriculum. Universities lose federal research funding. But institutions like Stanford and Berkeley remain world-class. Students from around the world still want to study there. Healthcare is a mixed bag. California creates a single-payer system, universal healthcare for all residents. It's expensive, but popular. However, some Americans who lose coverage after independence suffer. And then there's the emotional impact. Families divided by the border, friends on opposite sides, a sense of loss. The American identity that Californians grew up with is gone, replaced by something new, something uncertain. Consequences: America without California. Now let's flip the perspective. What happens to the United States after losing California? Economically, it's a disaster. The U.S. loses $3 trillion in GDP. That's nearly 15% of the American economy. Tax revenue drops. The federal budget faces a massive shortfall. Other states have to pick up the slack. Politically, America shifts to the right. California was a Democratic stronghold. 55 electoral votes, gone. Republicans now dominate national politics. The Democrats struggle to win presidential elections. The political balance of power has fundamentally changed. Culturally, America feels different. Hollywood is in another country. Silicon Valley is foreign. American innovation takes a hit. The tech industry, while still present in Seattle and Austin, is weaker without California's ecosystem. Militarily, the United States loses key bases and Pacific access. Projecting power in Asia becomes harder. China gains influence. The global balance of power shifts. And psychologically, Americans are traumatized. The idea of the United States as an unbreakable union is shattered. If California can leave, can Texas? Can Florida? Can any state? The precedent is set, and America's future suddenly looks uncertain. Take a moment and think about this. What would you do if you lived in California during independence? Would you vote yes or no? Would you stay or leave? Would you embrace the new republic or fight to remain American? What if your family was divided? Your parents wanted independence, but you didn't, or vice versa? What if your job disappeared? What if your savings lost value? History is made by ordinary people facing extraordinary choices. And California's independence would be one of the most extraordinary events in modern history. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think California could actually survive as an independent nation? Would it thrive or collapse? And if you lived there, would you vote for independence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's discuss this alternate history together. And if you're from California, tell us, would you want this to happen? The Republic of California, a nation of 40 million people, the fifth largest economy on Earth, independent, sovereign, and forever changed. But at what cost? Economic pain, political division, families torn apart, and a United States that will never be the same. California's independence would be a seismic event, not just for America, but for the entire world. It would reshape trade, politics, and power, and it would prove that even the strongest unions can break. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into alternate history, subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell. And next time, we're exploring another mind-blowing scenario. What if Texas left the United States? You won't want to miss it. See you in the next video. And remember, history isn't just about the past, it's about the choices we make today that shape our tomorrow.